Welcome back to Go Local Live. Up next in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center, it's our good friend Matthew Wexler from the Broadway Blog. How are you, Matt?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. So, more Broadway news. So much to talk about this time.
I know. We could just sit around listening to show tunes, talking all afternoon.
We could, couldn't we? All right, so let's do a little casting catch-up. Let's talk some interesting stuff going on casting-wise.
Yeah. So some big announcements came out since we last spoke. So there is a big production of My Fair Lady that is heading to Broadway this spring. Tickets go on sale at the end of October, and it opens in March. But the big news, of course, are who are playing the principal roles. And those roles have been cast as Lauren Ambrose as Eliza Doolittle, Cockney flowered. That's my terrible Cockney accent.
It was
Eliza
great.
Doolittle.
I loved it.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Lauren Ambrose. So, are you a 6 Feet Under fan? Because she was on 6 Feet Under.
I watched a few episodes, but I wasn't a bit. I mean, not that I'm not a fan. I just.
Yeah.
You know.
No, it's scary. Creepy.
Right.
But she was great, and she's been nominated for a couple of Emmy Awards for that show. And then more recently, she has been doing some theater work. She did at the Public Theater in Central Park, Romeo and Juliet. And she also did Hamlet. She played Ophelia, so she does have sort of this classical gravitas behind her. The director, Bartlett Sher, has wanted to work with her for quite some time. There was that was supposed to get off the ground of Funny Girl a few years ago, and due to, I guess, some production difficulties, probably raising some money, that didn't happen. She's great, but I kind of wondered if she can sing.
I was just going to ask you that.
YouTube talking, and I did. Yes, leave it to me. You know, I just sit around YouTubing Broadway stars, see what they're doing. And she can sing. She did a couple of concerts or cabaret type evenings at Joe's Pub at the Public Theater. But this was back in 2009, 2010. She's got this big belt voice. I think of My Fair Lady, and I think Julie Andrews, and she's kind of rough and tumble at the beginning, and then she elevates. Yeah. So we'll see. I'm excited. I think she's stunning, and I think working with Bartlett Sher, who's a really sensitive director, it could be really good. So playing opposite her is Harry Hayden Patton, and most people, Americans at least, probably don't know who he is. He's a British actor, and he's done a lot of work on the West End. He was on Downton Abbey for a couple of seasons, so people might recognize him from that. And then filling out the cast is Diana Rigg. So if you're a Game of Thrones fan, people will be freaking out to see her on stage. She plays Mrs. Higgins. And then Norbert Leo Butz, who's a Broadway vet. He's been around a long time. He plays Eliza's father. The age of all these characters and casting is a little bit interesting to me. And I talked about that last time with Bernadette Peters, and I kind of want to reel back my thoughts on that, sort of thinking like this is the stage and people can play outside of their sort of window of age. But in this particular production, you have Eliza and Henry Higgins, who are more like contemporaries in terms of their real life actor age. So we'll see how that reads on stage. Yeah,
it's interesting. And Norbert, I guess he's old enough to be her dad. I don't view him that way, but he is, right?
Well, funny you should ask, Ava, because I did a little bit of stalking there as well. Technically, if we're looking at the real actor age, Norbert is about 10 years older than Lauren Ambrose, so probably not. But he's a character actor, and it's at Lincoln Center, so he'll be, he'll pull it off. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, he's amazing. I feel like he could pull anything off. So
yeah, he'll be good. So that's the big news in terms of new shows that are coming, and that sort of came out in the news this week. I know you saw Waitress the last time we talked.
This one is killing me.
Waitress news that is happening fall. Are you excited? So Jason Mraz, Grammy Award winning singer-songwriter, is stepping into the role of love interest Drew. What do you think?
I'm dying. I'm dead.
Really?
I would love to see that. I love Jason Mraz. I think he is vocally perfect and type-wise perfect. So I would love to see it. Yeah.
Waitress, so he's going in at November 3rd, and I would assume probably be in it at least until the end of the year. Waitress is doing some interesting promotions in honor of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So if that's a cause that's important to viewers, I would encourage you to go on the website and check out some of the things that they're doing to promote breast cancer awareness. And the national tour is actually launching in Cleveland at the end of October. If anybody wants to hop a flight to Cleveland to go see it, it's starting there. So
awesome.
The Waitress buzz, yeah.
I love it. Oh, I love it. And we have another really cool show opening. Tell us about the band's visit. This is so interesting.
It is. So this is really one of the big shows that's opening this fall on Broadway. So if you're planning on coming into the city at some point this holiday season, it opens November 9th. And this has music by David Yazbek. It's funny, we don't really talk a lot, or people aren't quite as familiar with composer lyricists besides the big ones like Stephen Sondheim or some of those composers from the Golden Age era. But David Yazbek wrote The Full Monty. He wrote Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown. Of course, I was looking him up a little bit as well, and cumulatively his shows have been nominated for more than 24 Tony Awards. So he has quite the body of work behind him. This particular show, the band's visit, started at Atlantic Theater Company off Broadway in a smaller house. And in short, it's a musical about this Egyptian police band that through some confusion at border control ends up in this small remote village in Israel. And it's the intersection of these characters and how they relate to one another, and some assumptions and barriers and walls that come down as these two groups get to know one another. And I think it's particularly topical with what's happening in the world right now, and certainly a message of tolerance and acceptance. And I think there's a little bit of a love story in there as well.
Gotta have that.
Always gotta have that in a Broadway musical. Also interesting about this particular show is really the musical vocabulary that David is using. It has some really beautiful sort of Middle Eastern flavor and rhythms, and so that's a really exciting, for me, a new fresh sound that people probably have not heard on Broadway before. So
exactly,
I'm excited
and
to see it.
It is really cool because it's the music that's really, setting this apart from other shows, and I think it really shows what range as a composer he has, because his other pieces are definitely more like traditional musical theater, maybe a little, but this is something completely different. There's a lot of jazz and like you said, Middle Eastern. So obviously very talented as a composer to be able to reach that far.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, the music is gorgeous. Okay, so what else is happening in New York? Some family-friendly stuff if you're taking a visit with the little ones? What have we got going on?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as people think about coming into town for the holidays, of course, you have Radio City and the Christmas Spectacular, and you have the Nutcracker. But if you want to do something a little bit different, the Big Apple Circus is raising the tent once again this fall. Performances start October 28th, and it runs through the beginning of January. And I don't know if you remember, but Ringling Brothers sadly shut down a couple years ago, so they're out of business. I think, Cirque du Soleil has had a really big impact on kind of what people think of circuses to be in this day and age, but Big Apple is really a throwback to those European-style circuses. It's a much smaller ring and tent, so nobody is further than about 50 feet from the center of the ring. And you have all those great acts like acrobats and clowns and jugglers. And I will say there are some animals, so people have their opinions about whether animals should be in circuses or not. I'm going to stay Switzerland on that issue. Everybody can decide for themselves. There are no elephants. From what I understand, there are horses and ponies, and this particular animal wrangler also works with rescue dogs, which I think is super sweet. So
I think it's really cool, and honestly, I did my own set of Googling for this one because I am one of those people that feel very strongly about animals in circuses. And no exotic animals are used in their circuses, and as you said, they have a very strong they're strong advocates for their animals. They apparently treat them very well, and really stand behind the humane treatment of their animals. So hopefully nothing crazy going on there, and it sounds like a really good time.
Yeah, well, good. I'm glad you fact checked that.
I did. I fact checked that one.
Confidently recommend the Big Apple Circus
Yes.
and the animals.
Okay, a couple of cool things happening like throughout the city. We got a couple of cool things coming to some of these bigger performance rooms that we bring up sometimes. What do you got for us?
Yeah. There's a couple performances that I'm excited to see happen this fall that kind of tie a little bit into some of the other things that we've been talking about this afternoon. So Kyle Ryatko is a musician and a performer and a singer-songwriter. He did a show a couple of years ago called it was a Burt Bacharach show, basically, where they sort of reimagined that material, and it was the New York Theater Workshop, which is where Rent started, which is the show that you did on Broadway, just to name drop. So the production to West End, as he was working on that, he found a fan letter that Burt Bacharach wrote to Richard Rodgers. Richard Rodgers is part of the songwriting team behind Oklahoma, The King and I, and The Sound of Music. So this album that Kyle has put out is Richard Rodgers Reimagined, and it's these really great kind of contemporary pop, acoustic-y arrangements of that songbook. And he is doing a couple of release engagement dates at Joe's. That's going to be November 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. So that's exciting. And then the other show that I'm super excited to see, and she's such a sweetheart, is Melissa Errico, who is doing a Sondheim tribute at Feinstein's 54 Below. So this is going to bring our whole conversation full circle. So Melissa Errico, the last time they did My Fair Lady on Broadway was in 1993. And guess who played Eliza Doolittle? It was Melissa Errico.
Amazing.
Yeah, so she I've interviewed her before. Super sweet and down to earth, and she just has this angelic voice like none other. So she is exploring the Sondheim songbook at Feinstein's, and I think it's going to be a really exciting evening. She did Passion at Classic Stage Company a few years ago, and that was really the first time the public saw her doing Sondheim material, and she's just a great interpreter of music and lyrics, so I think it's going to be pretty fantastic.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Well, once again, Matthew, you gave us some awesome tips and some great things to look out for in the Broadway world. So thank you so much. And we will have you back.
You're welcome. See you next.
Yeah, I'll see you.